إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا زدنا من فضلك علما. اللهم اغننا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم واكرمنا بالتقوى وجعلنا بالعافية. Inshallah, continuing with recitation and interpretation of the Quran, we skipped out this one section, but we thought of just reading it for the barakah of completing the entire book, so that we can say that at least we've heard the entire chapter from cover to cover. Even though these few pages deal purely with the Arabic language, Imam Ghazali is just trying to explain how the Quran leaves certain words out, and if one tries to understand the Quran purely just from the Arabic language but without the real ethos of what the Quran is about in terms of its greater meanings, then one might misunderstand. So Imam Ghazali entitles the chapter Several Quranic Subjects in which transmission from authorities on Quranic exegesis is necessary. Meaning, if one doesn't know the meanings that came down from the Sahaba or from the scholars of the past, one will never be able to understand the meanings of these verses, because the Quranic Arabic in these verses is so succinct that it leaves out what is necessary for the sentence to be understood in a grammatical fashion, or what would appear to a person. And so a person can severely misunderstand or they'll be lost. And so one has to then refer to an authority. So we're just going to go very quickly through it. There are many Quranic subjects in which hearing directly from authorities is necessary. One of them is conciseness, by omission and suppression of words understood. The example of this, we mentioned this already, the words of Allah, وَآتَيْنَا ثَمُودَ النَّاقَةَ مُبْصِرَةً فَظَلَمُوا بِهَا. And we gave the people of Thamud the camel, and the word is used, مُبْصِرَةً, a clear sign, or Mubsiratan means something that can see. People who read the verse might think that what can see is the camel, but what it's actually referring to is the sign. فَظَلَمُوا بِهَا, and they wronged it. Or the meaning could be they wronged themselves. The Quran also doesn't say how they wronged it, meaning that they killed it. And so one can only get this understanding if they go back to the ahadith that talk about the story of Thamud and how they killed the she-camel. So the man who looks at the outward Arabic verses imagines that the intended meaning is that the she-camel had eyes and was not blind. He also does not know by what the people of Thamud did wrong, and whether they did wrong to themselves or to others. Number two, the words of Allah, وَأَشْرِبُوا فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الْعِجْلِ. The love of the calf was filled into their hearts. And we said that the meaning here was حُبُّ الْعِجْلِ. وَأَشْرِبُوا فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الْعِجْلِ. The verse here says that the calf was made to enter into their hearts. Their hearts were made to love the calf. But the actual meaning is their minds were filled with love of the calf. Not that they were actually in love with the calf itself. So the word hub, the word love, is omitted in this verse. The third is the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِذَا لَأَذَقْنَاكَ ضِعْفَ الْحَيَاةِ وَضِعْفَ الْمَمَاتِ. In that case, we will allow you to taste the manifold punishment of this life and in death. And what is omitted here, or the meaning here, is if you had inclined to the infidels but a little, we would have afflicted you with the intensified chastisement of those who are living and the intensified chastisement of those who have died. The words al-ahya and al-mawta are substituted by al-hayat wal-mawat, and all this is permissible in balagha or any local language. Number four, the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَاسْأَلِ الْقَرْيَةَ الَّتِي كُنَّا فِيهَا وَالْعِيرَ الَّتِي أَقْبَلْنَا فِيهَا. In the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, the children tell their father, ask the city that we were in. And so the word here is left out, أهل القرية, ask the people of the city. If someone just reads the Arabic verse on its own, وَاسْأَلِ الْقَرْيَةَ الَّتِي كُنَّا فِيهَا, ask the city that we were in. It's impossible to ask a city, so there has to be a word that is implied here. And it's these implications which lies the meanings and the secrets of the Quran, because according to how or what meaning you put there, the meanings will actually change. And not anyone can put any meaning. Only someone who is an adept in the language and in understanding the Quran. So you ask the people of the city wherein we were, in the caravan with which we traveled. Thus in both, the word ahl is omitted and suppressed as the word understood. Number five, the words of Allah, ثَقُلَتْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Its meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says, when they ask about the hour, Allah says, ثَقُلَتْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. It is indeed heavy on the heavens and the earth. the meaning is خَفْيَتْ عَلَى أَهْلِ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That is, the time of the hour lies hidden to those who are in the heavens and the earth. ثَقُلَتْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, meaning when they ask about the time of the hour, Allah says the time of the hour is heavy on the heavens and the earth, meaning it can come down anytime. But what it actually means is that the time of the hour is hidden from people's knowledge. Since a thing lies heavy, if its knowledge lies hidden, the word meaning or the word hidden is substituted by the word heavy, and the word fi is put in the place of ala, the word in is put in the place of to, and the term ahl is suppressed, is understood and omitted. Again, one needs to understand the Arabic language to know the subtle details of these omissions. Number 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَتَجْعَلُونَ رِزْقَكُمْ أَنَّكُمْ تُكَذِّبُونَ. In Surah Waqi'ah, when Allah addresses the kuffar, He says, you have made it your rizq that you disbelieve. You have made it your daily bread that you disbelieve this message. And what is actually meant, وَتَجْعَلُونَ شُكْرَ رِزْقِكُمْ. Do you make the gratitude of your sustenance that you consider the Qur'an false? Meaning, in gratitude for that we provide for you even though you disbelieve in us, and we still continue to provide for you. Isn't this a sign that you ought to believe, but you continue to disbelieve? Number 7, the words of Allah, آتِنَا مَا وَعَدْتَنَا عَلَى رُسُلِكَ. In the last verses of Surah Al-Imran, where we are asked to make dua, رَبَّنَا وَآتِنَا مَا وَعَدْتَنَا عَلى رُسُلِكَ. Allah, grant us what you promised upon your messengers. What is left out here is the word lisan, tongue. Grant us that which you promised on the tongues of your messages. Allah doesn't mention the word tongues here, but it has to be understood, because we cannot say, grant us what you have promised on your messengers. We don't know what that is. What you granted on the tongues, meaning the du'as that the messengers made, we ask you for the du'a for ourselves. So the word al-sina, tongues, is omitted. Number 8, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. Surely we have sent it down, the Qur'an, during the night of decree. By it, Allah meant the Qur'an without mentioning it before. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. أَنزَلْنَاهُ. What is Allah referring to here? Allah is referring to the Qur'an. But in the Arabic language, in order to use a pronoun, you have had to have used the proper word before to which the pronoun then refers to. Okay, this is a rule in Arabic grammar. But the Quran obviously is above all the rules. So someone needs to know that Allah is actually referring to the Quran here. And many people, they'll come with strange, different even groups that are misguided, will use sometimes these omissions and put in their own words. And they'll say that this refers to something else to support their own ideology, but it's completely misfounded. Number 9, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, حَتَّى تَوَارَتْ بِالْحِجَابِ, until the sun disappeared in the veil of night. By it, Allah intended the sun without mentioning it. حَتَّى تَوَارَتْ بِالْحِجَابِ. In the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam, Allah doesn't mention the sun by name, but it needs to be understood that until the sun disappeared. Otherwise, it just says until it disappeared. What are we referring to? We don't know, unless we know the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam and how he was busy with his horses and they distracted him from the remembrance of Allah. And then the time of sunset came, and then he almost missed his prayers, and then he realized that he was being distracted by the beautiful horses, and then he slaughtered them. So if we don't know the story, we won't know what is being referred to. Number 10, the words of Allah, وَالَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَا إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَىٰ. So those who adopt patrons other than Allah say we worship them only that they may bring us closer to Allah. In fact, the meaning is بِقَوْلِهِمْ مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ وَالَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَا إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَىٰ. بِقَوْلِهِمْ, meaning they're saying of these words. But Allah SWT doesn't mention بِقَوْلِهِمْ, by their saying. Number 11, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَمَا لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ لَا يَكَادُونَ يَفْقَهُونَ حَدِيثًا مَا أَصَابَكَ مِنْ حَسَنَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ وَمَا أَصَابَكَ مِنْ سَيِّئَةٍ فَمِنْ نَفْسِكَ. The meaning ought to be لا يفقهون حديثا يقولون ما أصابك من حسنة فمن الله. What is the problem with these people? That they do not even approach the understanding of speech. They said whatever good comes to you is from Allah, and whatever ill befalls you is from yourself. If this is not meant, these verses then contradict the words of Allah preceding them. Tell them, قُلْ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Tell them all is from Allah. And the Qadri school of thought comes to this understanding. So the Qadris, they understand this verse in the way in which there's a contradiction, because the verse before this, Allah says, قُلْ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Say everything is from Allah. But in this verse, Allah says, whatever of good afflicts you is from yourself, and whatever good afflicts you is from Allah, and whatever evil afflicts you is from your own self. But the verse before, Allah says everything is from Allah. So how does one understand this sentence? Only through the Arabic grammar. It will contradict the previous verse, meaning there has to be these words which are omitted. So the meaning is, what ails these people in that they do not even approach the understanding of speech. They say whatever good comes to you is from Allah, and whatever evil befalls you is from yourself. Meaning that it's not Allah saying this, but they are actually saying it. And so Allah is refuting their statement. The second type among the Quranic subjects in which transmission from authorities is necessary is inversion. For example, the words of Allah, وَطُورِ سِينِينَ, and Turi Sina, in the Mount Sinai. The verse Salamun ala al Yasin. Okay? Ala Yasin or Ali or ala Ilyas. May peace be upon Ilyas. Some authorities have said that Idris is meant here because in the Mus'haf of Ibn Mas'ud, it is to be found Salamun ala Idrasin. Again, what does Ilyasin mean? We need to go to the authorities of the Sahaba. What did they understand by Ilyasin? Among the Quranic subjects, the third type in which transmission from authorities is necessary is repetition, which breaks the connection of speech. Examples are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَا يَتَّبِعُ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ شُرَكَاءَ يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ. The meaning is, وَمَا يَتَّبِعُ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ شُرَكَاءَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ. So in the Quran we read, and those who follow other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who follow partners other than Allah, they do not follow except conjecture. That is the way it appears in the Quran. However, the meaning is those who call on others than Allah do not follow any associates of Him except their own conjecture. One has to understand the last part before the first part. The second type of this third category is the words of Allah. قال الملأ الذين استكبروا من قومه للذين استضعفوا لمن آمن منهم. The meaning, استكبروا لمن آمن من الذين استضعفوا. Those leading men of his people who were haughty spoke to the believers among those who were reckoned weak. So the verse in the Quran says, قال الملأ الذين استكبروا. Those of the leaders who were proud from his people said to those who were weak of those who believed amongst him. But the right meaning is those leading men of his people who were haughty or who were proud spoke to the believers among those who were reckoned weak. Allah brings weakness first in the verse and then belief after. However, one needs to understand it. Belief first and then weakness. The fourth category among the Quranic subjects in which transmission from authorities is necessary is the occurrence of a word before or after its proper place. This is a place where error is made by many people. Examples of this are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَوْلَا كَلِمَةٌ سَبَقَتْ مِنْ رَبِّكَ لَكَانَ لِزَامًا وَأَجَلٌ مُسَمًّى. Were it not for a word that passed from your Lord, it would have been imperative and an appointed time. The meaning ought to be وَلَوْلَا الْكَلِمَةُ وَأَجَلٌ مُسَمًّى لَكَانَ لِزَامًا. Were it not for a word already gone forth from your Lord and a term already fixed, then the punishment would have been inevitable. If one didn't understand this, they would have thought that the time of fixed comes at the end of the verse. If this were not the meaning, the last letter of the word ajal would have been marked with fatha, as in the case of the term lizam. The second type of this fourth category are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَسْأَلُونَكَ كَأَنَّكَ حَفِيٌّ عَنْهَا. They ask you as though you are well acquainted with it. Whereas the meaning is يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْهَا كَأَنَّكَ حَفِيٌّ بِهَا. They ask you concerning the hour as if you were well acquainted with it. The third type, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, لَهُ مَغْفِرَةُ وَرِزْقٌ كَرِيمٌ كَمَا أَخْرَجَكَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَيْتِكَ بِالْحَقِّ. For them will be forgiveness and a honorable reward as your Lord took you out from your homes in truth. To them, the believers will be forgiveness and an honorable provision as your Lord brought you, O Muhammad, forth from your homes to take up arms in a righteous cause. Parts of this verse are disjoined. Its second part turns to a preceding speech of Allah, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala joined with that speech, the full meaning should thus read, قُلِ الْأَنْفَالُ لِلَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ كَمَا أَخْرَجَكَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَيْتِكَ بِالْحَقِّ. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَنْفَالِ. The verse in Surah Anfal starts, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَنْفَالِ قُلِ الْأَنْفَالُ لِلَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. And then the verses go on, 1, 2, 3, 4 verses. The continuation of that verse starts in the third or fourth verse where Allah says, كَمَا أَخْرَجَكَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَيْتِكَ بِالْحَقِّ. It's connected 5 verses down, the verse is connected to the first verse in the top. If someone doesn't understand Arabic, they won't know where this verse is connected to. And so therefore, when you're reading the Quran through translations, translators have to make many choices in how they translate. If someone understands Arabic language in their reading, then they know that, okay, there are so many options. We can go with this meaning or that meaning or that meaning or that meaning. The translator has to give one particular meaning. What's nice about Muhammad Asad's translation of the Quran is that in his notes, sometimes he alludes to some of these other meanings, that it could have meant this, or it could have meant that. This is the booties of goats have come to you since you are pleased to come from your homes, while a party of the believers were displeased. Between these words is put as parenthesis the commands of Allah to fear and to do other things. Of this type are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, حَتَّى تُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ إِلَّا قَوْلَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ Al-Ayah. Okay, a part of these verses are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, until you believe in Allah, the one, except Ibrahim saying to his father. The fifth type among the Quranic subjects in which transmission from authorities is necessary is an ambiguous expression, words which have double meanings or meanings which might not be clear. It is an expression with different meanings and may be a word or a letter. Examples of ambiguous words are al-Shia', al-Qarin, al-Ummah, al-Ruh, and the like. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ضرب الله مثلا عبدا مملوكا لا يقدر على شيء. Allah sets forth the example of a slave who is owned by a person and has no power over anything. By the word shay, Allah meant spending out of the provision given to the slave. Allah said, ضرب الله مثل رجلين أحدهما أبكم لا يقدر على شيء. Allah sets forth the example of two men. One of them is dumb, having no capacity for achieving anything. Shay. Shay here means to enjoin justice and righteousness. So in the first verse, shay means provisions, and in the second verse, shay here means justice and righteousness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the story of Musa alayhi salam, said, فَإِنِ اتَّبَعْتَنِي فَلَا تَسْأَلْنِي عَنْ شَيْءٍ. If you would follow me, then do not ask me about anything. Here, shay means, do not ask me about the sifat al-rububiyyah, the lordly attributes, which are those forms of knowledge about which it is not lawful to ask until the mystic starts with them and he begins to be fit to receive it. So Khidr alayhi salam was not just telling Musa alayhi salam, don't ask me about anything. He was asking me, don't ask me about those hidden mystical secrets, because this is something that cannot be spoken about. Your heart has to be trained to become worthy of it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Have they, the disbelievers, been created from nothing, or were they their own creators? Have they been created from shay, from anything? Here, shay means the creator. Sometimes it is wrongly supposed that this verse proves that a thing can only be created from a thing. As for the word qareen, companion, examples of it being ambiguous are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَقَالَ قَرِينُهُ هَذَا مَا لَدَيَّ عَتِيدٌ أَلْقِيَا فِي جَهَنَّمَ كُلَّ كَفَّارٍ عَنِيدٍ. His companion in the year after will say, I have his record, I have here his record, and the verdict will be, both of you cast every infidel into the hellfire. By the word qareen, companion, Allah has meant the angel to be entrusted with the infidel. The words of Allah, the second type is قَالَ قَرِينُهُ رَبَّنَا مَا أَطْغَيْتُهُ وَلَكِنْ. His companion will say, Lord, I did not cause him to rebel against you. He was gone in error on his own. By qareen here, God has meant every person's shaitan. So qareen is used in the verse in Surah Qaf. But in the first instance, it is referring to the angels that have the person's books. And in the second verse, it's referring to a person's devil that's with them. Every person has a devil that's whispering to them. How does one understand that it's referring to this one here and that one there? Because one has to have the chains of narration. As for the term al-ummah, it is applicable to 8 meanings. Al-ummah means a group of people, as in the words of Allah, وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ يَسْقُونَ. Musa alayhi salam found around it an ummah, a group of people who were watering the flocks. The second type, the followers of prophets, as in your saying, نَحْنُ مِنْ أُمَّةِ مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. The word ummah in the Quran, or the word ummah, can also mean followers of the prophets. The third meaning of ummah is a man endowed with all forms of goodness and is followed by others, as in the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّ إِبْرَاهِيمَ كَانَ أُمَّةً قَانِتًا لِلَّهِ حَنِيفًا. Ibrahim was indeed an ummah. He was endowed with all forms of goodness, humble for Allah's sake. Another word meaning of ummah is religion, as in the words of Allah, إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَى أُمَّةٍ. We found our forefathers upon an ummah. What is an ummah? Holding on to a certain religion. Now this word ummah, the translators in the translation of the Quran will translate all the meanings differently. The person reading the translation will not know that it's the same word meaning ummah. But all of those verses have shades of meaning which a person might be able to understand, just if they understood the meaning of the word ummah. The fifth word, meaning of ummah is time and period, as in the words of Allah, ila ummatin ma'duda, until an appointed time. Allah uses the word ummah also for time. And in the words of Allah, وَذَّكَرَ بَعْدَ أُمَّةٍ. So Yusuf, he remembered after an appointed time, after an ummah, and remembered after the lapse of a period of time. The sixth meaning of ummah is the stature of a man. Thus it is said, so and so is of a good stature. Okay, he's of a good standing, a good ummah. The seventh meaning is a man who alone follows a religion. No one is his partner in following that religion, meaning he was the only follower of that religion. Thus the Prophet ﷺ said, Zayd bin Amr bin Nufail will be resurrected alone as an ummah. The Prophet ﷺ spoke of some of the people before his prophecy, among them Qus bin Sa'ad al-Ayadi, and some of the people of Mecca who were originally on the religion of their forefathers, who worshipped only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They didn't know about Islam, but they used to tell people not to worship idols, not to drink. They still had that inherent good. The Prophet said these people will be raised on their own as an ummah, meaning they will be raised individually on the day of Qiyamah. And the last meaning of ummah can mean one's mother or a mother. Thus it is said, this woman is the ummah of Zayd. Such a woman is the ummah of so-and-so. So this lady is the ummah of her son, meaning her mother. Also the meaning ruh has also occurred in the Quran in many meanings. We do not like to prolong our discussion by mentioning them. Just as ambiguity occurs in words, so it occurs in letters. Examples of this are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. The first ha alludes to hawafir, which is the hooves, which are the muriyat. The meaning is they raised with their hooves clouds of dust. The second ha alludes to ighara, which is al-mughirati subha fawasatna bihi jam'a. The meaning is the polytheists gathered together and the raiders at dawn raided their gathering. The second type is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَأَنزَلْنَا بِهِ الْمَاءَ فَأَخْرَجْنَا بِهِ مِنْ كُلِّ الثَّمَرَاتِ. We send down water from it and we bring forth with it fruits of every kind. The first ha refers to the sahab, the clouds, and the second ha refers to the water. Allah refers to ha. A person might be thinking Allah is referring to the same thing, but Allah is referring to different things. Allah is first referring to the clouds and then is referring to the water. Cases like these are many in the Quran and they cannot be enumerated. The last category among the Quranic matters in which transmission from authorities is necessary is progression in exposition. An example of this is the words of Allah, شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. The month of Ramadan is the month in which the Quran began to be revealed. From this verse, it has not become clear whether the start of revelation was at night or at daytime, but it has become clear from the words of Allah, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةٍ مُبَارَكَةٍ. We indeed revealed the Quran in a blessed night. From this verse, it has become clear which night it was, but it has become clear. From this verse, it has not become clear which night it was, but it has become clear from his Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. We revealed it in the night of Qadr. So Allah speaks about these different verses. Allah in the verse says, شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. Ramadan is the month in which we reveal the Quran. We don't know anything about which day or night. In another verse, Allah says, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةٍ مُبَارَكَةٍ. We revealed it in a blessed night, but we don't know which is the blessed night. Then in Surah Al-Qadr, Allah says, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. We revealed it in the Laylatul Qadr. Meaning when we read one verse of the Quran, we need to have knowledge of the entire Quran and all the other verses to see which are the verses connected to this verse before we can actually make an opinion or have an understanding, a correct understanding of that verse. Sometimes considering the outward aspect of these verses, one imagines that there might be a disagreement amongst them. And this, when one looks at verses of the Quran which appear from the outset to have contradictory meanings, then this indicates there are hidden meanings in these verses. And with that we come to close with the examples of Imam Ghazali in the conclusion of the book. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us tawfiq wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.